Hello everybody, welcome back to the Matthew and Carlene channel. Today we are going over some news feed that does in fact prove beyond reasonable doubt women do in fact need men. They do, despite what feminism keeps constantly saying. So, if you like this content, by all means, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss another episode. Let's get into it, shall we?
Men have been steadily dropping out of the workforce, especially men aged 25 to 54, who are often considered to be in their prime working years. As of August 2024, 13.7% of prime age men were not working, compared to just 7.2% in 1954.
The long-term decline in labor force participation by so-called prime age men is a tremendous worry for our society, for our economy, and probably also for our political system.
There's a surplus of prime age workers who could be working and aren't, and that's this puzzling problem.
The unemployment rate for prime age working men sat at 3.4% in August 2024. This number primarily includes those who are unemployed and looking for a job. But about 10.5% of men in their prime working years, or roughly 6.8 million men nationwide, are neither working nor looking for employment, compared to just 2.5% in 1954.
What's surprising is it's not a COVID phenomenon, it's not a recession phenomenon.
And for every prime age man who is unemployed and looking for a job, there are more than 3, and some years 4, who are neither working nor looking for work.
So what's driving men out of the workforce? And if left unchecked, what impact will it have on the U.S. economy?
Well, I'll let them say what they think is driving it, but one of the things I think is driving it is lack of appreciation. Because I mean, think about it. Us men, we help build this world. We build your buildings. We paved your roads. We worked in your sewers. We done so much. And the only thing we really get in return is we need men to do more. More. And the allegations from our local Western women. Really, it's not really work. Do you really want to contribute to something like that, knowing that you're not valued? That people just don't care about you because you were born a boy? No, definitely not. Definitely not. Let's continue, shall we?
Nearly half of prime age men out of the workforce cited obsolete skills, lack of education and training, poor work record, or security issues as a reason preventing them from work.
Education is a very important predictor of a prime age man's odds of being out of the labor force.
The big impacts are on the non-college educated groups on their ability to enter and stay in the labor market.
Men who are not college educated leave the workforce at higher rates than men who are. At the same time, fewer younger men have been enrolling in college over the past decade.
If you look at the geography of where the most prime age men out of the labor force are in particular, they tend to be in places that have experienced manufacturing declines. They used to graduate with a high school education and have good, stable jobs. They weren't glamorous jobs. They were, automobile factories, sometimes mines, other manufacturing jobs, but they were respected, they were stable, and they could support a family. Since then, due to technology-driven growth, a little bit due to Chinese competition, you've had a lot of manufacturing firms and the places where they were located that were one-horse towns become ghost lands, right?
Wages could also be a contributing factor. Median annual wages for men with a high school diploma have fallen from just over $57,600 in 1973 to $45,000 in 2023, adjusted for inflation. At the same time, wages for those with a bachelor's degree or more have increased by about $6,300 during the same period. This decline in earnings led to a 44% growth in the exit rate of men without a college degree from the workforce between 1980 and 2019.
I think, honestly, status plays more of a role than wages. As I said before, you had a manufacturing job, it was respected, you were part of a community, breadwinner for your family, you had organizations like unions or Rotary clubs that surrounded your job. And
Okay, guys, I think a lot of stuff they mentioned are contributing factors here, especially the part of the whole respect. Because let's face it, from what I've seen, the majority of Western women just don't respect men anymore. They really just don't. Because after all, you guys need to think about this. Like I said before in the previous channel, I can tell you straight up, as a sterile processing technician who works on surgical tools for a living, if manufacturing companies have been relentlessly saying, we don't have the manpower anymore to keep up with the current abortion rates, we don't, because men have been so incredibly burnt out from being grossly underappreciated to the point where it doesn't matter what we offer them, it's a struggle just to recruit them, let alone keep them on board, quite literally. Well, let's face it, everybody. It does not take a PhD to figure out no access to abortion tools means no abortions. We can't give you an abortion if we don't have the tools. So, here's literal proof for all of you that Roe v. Wade was in fact overturned because of feminism, not because of patriarchy. After all, if this whole feminist movement thing that's literally dominated by local Western women really wanted Roe v. Wade back, if they really did, they would be going full throttle into addressing the issues that men go through on an everyday basis so that manufacturing companies would have an easier time recruiting the necessary amount of manpower to keep up with Roe v. Wade. They wouldn't be doubling down on what literally created the problem that got Roe v. Wade overturned in the first place. They literally would not. Let's continue, shall we?
that's gone.
In general, men without children are also less likely to participate in the workforce compared to men with children, especially men without education or training after high school.
What we have seen is a huge rise in the proportion of prime-age men who've never been married, and a very, very significant decline in the proportion who are currently married and have kids at home. And those two trends track closely with the big changes that we've seen about male attachment in the labor force. Correlation isn't always causation, but looking at that correspondence is real important, I think.
Meanwhile, 57% of the roughly 10% of men not looking for work said their physical or mental health was the main reason for not being employed, with 55% citing a disability, serious illness, and or receiving disability benefits.
The whole question about the health and the mental health of male workforce dropouts is an extremely important and I think concerning one. Distressing.
I'm going to have to agree with this. Mental health is extremely important. It's a very extremely big factor for this. Because after all, let's face it, we need to think about the men's viewpoint on things. Men literally constructed buildings for everybody. We're paving the roads. We're literally the people who are turning this country into a first world country and maintaining its first world country status. The average man does so much. And the only thing we get from the average Western woman in return nowadays, because of feminism, is allegations like "you make me feel uncomfortable" and more and more demands. We need men to do more, with no real end in sight to it. The men get burnt out. They literally do. Like, being a man right now is completely thankless. And let's face it, any man, it's not that hard to understand that a man is going to value his mental health over finances. He, honest to God, will. Let's continue.
Proportion of the men who are out of the workforce say they're using pain medications every day.
A 2017 research paper estimates that an increase in opioid prescription between 1999 to 2015 led to about 43% of the decline in men's labor force participation rate during that period.
So then you have to ask, what sort of pain are we talking about? Are we talking about physical pain? Are we talking about metaphysical pain? There's an enormous amount of depression, mental health challenges that men in this grouping face. Some of this is a chicken and egg question. Did you drop out because you were feeling sad, or are you sad because you dropped out and you're living on the couch?
Unemployment is really terrible for people's well-being. Often people adapt to all kinds of negative shocks, losing a kid, being widowed, whatever, and eventually kind of come back. But long-term unemployment is one of the worst things in terms of that. So what you have is a kind of scarring effect, and it's worse for men because their identity is much more wrapped up in their role as a worker.
Men's declining workforce participation can potentially leave a lasting impact on the American economy.
It means slower growth of the economy, obviously. It means bigger wealth gaps within our society.
It certainly will have an impact on our productivity, and probably already is.
The U.S. has been experiencing a severe shortage in labor, still missing 1.7 million Americans from the workforce compared to February 2020. The McKinsey Global Institute estimates that U.S. GDP could have been $296 to $442 billion higher in 2023 if the country had been able to fill its job vacancies. However, some experts suggest the impacts of men leaving or never entering the workforce could be more sector-specific.
You need young men coming in wanting to replace those people going out. And so if men have primarily been in more manual labor, more blue-skilled and skilled trades, if they're older and they're leaving in their retirement and there's not as many young men coming in, both because of declining cohort sizes, but moving in a different direction type of careers, we're going to be losing that sector of productivity.
Despite a steep rise in federal funding, the infrastructure sector hasn't been able to find enough workers, with the construction workforce shortage surpassing 500,000 in 2024.
Sorry guys for stopping, but I just thought to point out to you all that we shouldn't forget local Western women with the whole feminism thing have been relentlessly saying this is what they wanted. Quite literally. How many times have we always heard, we don't need men anymore. Men are worthless. Men only want one thing. Men should just leave. Well, congratulations, feminism. You got exactly what you wanted. You did. And now everybody has to pay for it. Especially local Western women. Now that's not sexist. That is a cut and dry demand that's been historically well known for quite some time now. You know, pay back your debt to society, punishment fitting the crime. Or in this case, local Western women created this problem with their man-hate movement known as feminism. So local Western women should be the ones to bear the majority of the responsibility to clean it up. After all, if you can make a mess on your own, you can clean it up on your own. Let's continue.
We
We are a little concerned about the impact that inflation is going to have and has had on the movement of infrastructure dollars into the actual productive activity. Having a shortage of men in construction is going to raise a problem.
The trend could have a dire sociopolitical impact as well.
It'll get worse in ways that we would not like. I mean, I think it would lead to more premature deaths, but it will also likely lead to radicalization and polarization, because this is a frustrated, left-behind group with no options.
There are problems that government can address and problems that government can't address.
So one of the first functions that beats out policy is economic growth. You have a strong economy, you're going to have increased wage structure, and it's going to bring people back into the market.
More than a quarter of prime age men not looking for work cited insufficient pay as a reason preventing them from work. And nearly half said competitive pay, salary, compensation, and or bonuses was a very important factor when considering whether to enter or return to the workforce.
For the young, better training, skills training, some form of post-high school education, encouraging that, maybe even subsidizing that. I think part of the youth mental health crisis has to do with what's next. What's AI going to do? What am I going to do? Are there any stable jobs? I can't afford college. All those questions all come together. And so models that help them kind of give them a jump start can be really effective ways of intervening. And there are actually now really promising programs in high schools which teach kids financial literacy. They teach them about equitable entrepreneurship. They teach them about...
Okay, yeah, I'm going to once again say that mental health is a huge problem here, because men are having their mental health attacked on a regular basis by Western women as a result of feminism. Because like I said, you spend your entire life being constantly told every single day that you don't matter, that being born a boy is a sin, where you're constantly being compared to the 1% of the male population. That doesn't matter what you do. The Western women will always have a reason to bash you. Quite literally, constantly declare you, find some way to think of you as a sexual predator in some way. Even though you're not. You literally didn't do anything. But that doesn't stop the average Western woman from looking at you that way when they first see you. That's literally the first thing. That's really how they just picture you. I mean, how many times have we seen a man in school be declared guilty till proven innocent by an allegation made by a Western woman, and we saw other people willing to step in and say, hey, this is wrong. You shouldn't do this to your fellow men, to these men. You really should not. Let's continue.
How do you foster better mental health as part of the workplace? And it seems to inspire kids to go on to college, right? Because they sort of see a pathway where they didn't see it before.
29% of men out of the labor force said that training and educational programs was another important factor in considering a return to the workforce.
Having the type of commitment from the employer to train and retain and offer upward mobility for workers, I think will be very important. Trying to figure out more about career pathways in the labor market and not just the education side. So how is it that someone moves from first job, next job to best job? How do we help people understand and navigate?
Nearly a quarter of working Americans said they weren't satisfied with their growth opportunities in the workplace, compared to other OECD countries that on average spend 0.1% of their GDP on training their workers. The US spent only 0.03% of their GDP on job training in 2022.
Older age groups, it's tougher. You're probably not going to get these guys to retrain, but there are a lot of programs that have largely been pioneered in the UK, much more than here, but we're starting to pick up on them, that literally just try and reboot community activities. They get these isolated people in despair out of their houses. It can make a difference.
Social programs like disability benefits spark contentious debate.
It's very controversial. People have very strong opinions about this. While we don't know why it is happening, we can be pretty clear that the social welfare programs are helping, and the disability programs are helping to.
Okay, I'm gonna have to disagree with him. We know why it's happening. Because with local Western women just don't value us. They don't. I mean, this is the reason. That's literally the reason why I chose to get away from overseas. Quite literally, I'm not gonna work where I'm not. Man, oh my God. Let me go back. It's kind of very difficult to convince men to work if they're not being valued. Like, you don't appreciate them. You don't even like. So many people, they just don't even like us. It's kind of hard. Let's be honest here. We all heard so much research that shows that if the entire male population in its entirety were to go on strike for a day, meaning the entire infrastructure system were to just go on strike for one day, we would be cleaning up the mess for several decades. This is kind of dry research material revealing that we're partially experiencing that right now. We honest to God are. And the irony is that, like I said before, we owe this because of feminism. I mean, let's face it, we've all heard so many women, local Western women, say we don't need men anymore. Well, take a look. This is the reality of what a world without men looks like. This is what it actually generally looks like. Let's continue.
Finance this situation in a way that was never originally intended.
A 2018 analysis by the Joint Economic Committee found that 64% of prime age men who aren't working were receiving some sort of government assistance.
So the one benefit that they rely heavily on is disability insurance. One, because they often are unable to work if they have a physical injury or high levels of addiction or whatever. But it also provides health insurance, which is huge.
Very much against the initial intentions of the founders of the program. They've ended up with a perverse situation that too often subsidizes or even incentivizes helplessness and long-term dependence. If we thought about a system in which we had a work-first principle where the incentives were for getting the training and then showing up at the job and then staying at the job, I think we'd be in a lot better place than we are today.
However, some experts remain doubtful about whether altering the benefits program will lead to meaningful results.
I think until we deal with the deeper problem of ill health, ill mental health, these guys aren't going to respond to incentives.
Everybody is responsible for their brothers. Everybody's responsible for their neighbors and their friends. And we ourselves as citizens can help to shine a spotlight on this. It shouldn't be America's invisible problem. And the more that we talk about it, the more that we pay attention to it, the closer we get to turning this around.
Alright guys, I'm going to finish it off here to say, this is another reason why I strongly support the Passport Bro movement, whether you're the first type or the second type, which is what me and Carlene are doing. Because let's face it, the majority of local Western women may not like men. They don't, and that's clearly creating problems, as you can clearly see. However, from overseas, there are plenty of women from overseas, like Philippines, Thailand, Brazil, you name it, who do like us, who know how to treat us right. That's why I honestly strongly support, maybe we should have immigration reforms to get those women over, to make getting engaged to those women, fiancé visas or marriage visas a little bit easier. Because, let's be honest here, we won't find women that value us here in the West anymore. It's just not going to happen. Feminism has taken that away and it's created problems. And quite frankly, I can tell you from first-hand experience, Men are just so much better off getting away from overseas than trying to navigate dating and marrying locally. They are. They just are. Alright. As you clearly see from here, when you try to date and navigate locally, the damage to their mental health is very severe. Insanely severe. But when men date and marry internationally, get away from overseas, become a passport bro, the amount of healing that's done to a man's mental health, I'll be honest with you, is completely unquestionable. It really is. There's no real way to deny it. I myself had first-hand experience with this. Anyways, I know all my fellow men here in the West might think they're forgotten, but I'm not looking the other way on you. I'm not. Because I've been where you are. And that's the reason why me and Carlene are doing this channel. To remind you that you are valued. You are. Maybe not here in the West, but you are valued by women overseas, like Philippines, Brazil, Thailand, etc., etc. And that will help you out a lot. It honest to God will. Have a nice day, everybody.